In this demonstration, I'd like to show you how you can actually route a message based upon the value of fields in the message. And one thing we don't really have in our purchase order here is a total amount. That would make it a little bit easier. So I'm actually going to modify the schema they gave us, and I'm going to say insert an element or an attribute. Let's make it an attribute here called total PO amount, and we'll make that a decimal field, and we'll add another one called vendor or customer number, and we'll leave that a string. Now, one reason we added these two fields is we are now going to use them to route our messages to different send ports. And what we have to do this is promote the field. So right here you see something called promotion and then quick and show promotion. In a future video I'll show you how you can manually promote fields. Right now I want to do it the fast way first. So let's just do over here quick promotion. And what it's going to tell you here is it's going to create yet another schema for you called a property schema, and it's going to add it to your project, and you basically have to agree to this at this point. Okay, so if we look over here, let's refresh our listing. You now see property schema XSD, and we'll show you inside of that in just a minute. The other thing you'll notice is we've got this little, I call it a blue ribbon. It looks like a little yellow certificate with a blue ribbon hanging off of it. So total PO amount is now what's called a promoted field. And we're going to do the same thing for customer number. And now this time it did not create another schema because the schema already existed. So now if we open the property schema, you can now see there are the two fields that we promoted, plus there's always a dummy field here. So I prefer to just go ahead and delete that dummy field, get it out of there. And so after doing our promotion, we need to redeploy our solution. So let's come over here and say deploy solution. Of course, it's going to build the project again. It's going to redeploy those schemas, and it says deploy succeeded. Okay, so remember, anytime you deploy a schema, you always need to cycle BizTalk, the host. So we have a restart option here. If you use BizTalk 2004, you had to do a stop and a start, and now in 2006 you can just say restart. And then every time you restart it, by the way, that writes a record to the application event log. So you can come down here and you can see this information message that says BizTalk was successfully initialized. Okay, so now we're going to go back to our send ports. So here we have one send port, and let's actually rename it. So to rename it, I can open it to the properties, and here let's call this small. And unfortunately you can't copy paste a whole port. So what I'd like to do now is create another port called large. So I'm going to just copy the name. I'm going to come to the send port, say new. I'm just going to paste it, and I'm going to type over small to large, and I'm going to put file here. I'm going to configure, and my folder name will be, actually let's go to the disk here first. So here was the file I was using, and I'm going to rename that and put the word small on the end of it, and I'm going to create a new one here called out large. And I'm going to go ahead and delete all the files we have in the small directory, so we have a clear start now. Okay, so back here I'm going to go pick the file we just created, which is BizTalk demos PO application, and then large. And just in case there's a problem here, I want to slow down the retry. There's a couple more things we're going to do. Let's go back here to small, and let's change the directory. Remember, we changed the name here to add the word small. And now we're going to go back to our filtering. So you click on filters here. Not only are we interested in the purchase order schema, we're also interested where the PO amount is under a certain amount. So if we scroll down here, we will see our application. But the reason you don't see it is we haven't refreshed lately. So I'm going to have to hit OK here and come over here, and at least on the send ports, or if not all the way here to the application, I need to say refresh, because a few minutes ago we did a deploy and this utility didn't know that we did a deploy, so its brains are a little bit out of date. So now we're going to go back to send port. Let's get the name bigger here, small, and we're going to go to filters, click here, and again we're going to scroll down to like the PO area, LMNOP, right? Okay, and there's PO pop, and then right here we have our two promoted fields. So this is kind of what's cool about promoted fields. It actually puts the promoted fields in a database and designates them as being promoted, and then right here you can choose them. So I want the total. What I could do is also I could filter by customer numbers, like where customer number is this, I could route it to a separate directory. But what I'm going to do now is total amount is less than, and I'm going to say everything under 1,000 is small, and everything greater than or equal to 1,000 is large. So that's my small directory, and now here's my large directory. And we'll go to properties, filters, and we have to add the other filter. So just to be sure I do it right, I want to copy that. So here I want to copy this name, make sure I get it exactly the same, and notice it was bts.messageType. So here we go to properties, filters, go to BTS message type, equals, whoops, we don't want the and in there. Ooh, that copy got too much. Looks like I copied the whole row by mistake there. Make sure you don't have any trailing blanks on this or anything. And then here we want to go down to the PO and say total amount is greater than or equal to 1,000. And then we need to start that port. So both ports are started, and we're going to drop a file again. So we need to go to PO file in. We now need to actually change our sample data. So we'll do that in Visual Studio here. Remember our sample data? So what did we change? A minute ago we added total PO amount. And that's going to be an attribute. By the way, attributes like right here, if I close and reopen this, they're going to jump to the top. So notice right now they look like they're down here under items. But if I close it and then just reopen the same file, it's taking just a second here. Oh, Visual Studio crashed. I'm going to have to reopen it and show you in a minute. Okay, so I reopened Visual Studio, and here's my point, is the attributes always return to the top under the element they belong under. So when you add them, they tend to go to the bottom, but when you reopen it, they will appear back toward the top. And of course, attributes can be in any order in the XML. So now we need to add, I'll just do a rename here. We're going to add this element or this attribute to our data. So we need to open our data file here. And here we're going to say this purchase order is for $800. And now we're going to copy our file. Actually, we'll rename our file to be let's just put 800 so we remember how much it is. And then we'll copy it again, paste it, and the copy we'll rename to, and we'll put in here like 1500. Let's rename this to 0800 so they sort that way. Okay, in the 1500 one, I open it and I'm going to put $1,500 there. And I'm going to save it, make sure everything's saved here. Now we're going to go back and remember our two files here, large is empty and small is empty. And of course our receive location is empty. So now I'm going to copy the 800 file to the receive location, and I'm going to copy the 1500 file to the same receive location. And this utility doesn't refresh right away. Okay, I hit the refresh button and the files are not picked up yet. So that means our receive location is not working. So we go back to BizTalk admin, refresh here, make sure it's enabled. Looks like it's enabled. Still hasn't picked them up. Okay, so the reason for this error, let me just give you the steps I would check to see why you're having this error. Number one is you would check here, make sure your receive port's enabled, and you click refresh, and it's still enabled. Number two, I'd make sure my host instance was running, and I would refresh there, and yes, it's still running. Then I would go to my application event log and check for errors, and here we see a failure audit. So in a previous demonstration, I had actually renamed my BizTalk host to kind of make another point. And it looks like that BizTalk host user ID doesn't have access to one of my SQL servers. So rather than fixing that there, I'm just going to come back here and reset this to N. Walters. And then I'm going to... Okay, again, I have to stop BizTalk before I can change the user ID. Seems like they would check that before they let you type it in instead of afterwards, but that's too logical. Okay, so we stop it, then we change it while it's stopped. So we come back here, change user ID. It's warning me that that's an administrative ID, and then I start the host. Okay, so now we go back to that directory to see if our files have gone yet. They still haven't gone. So we check the event log again. We see here's where we restarted it with the information message. Let's just do a disable and enable here. And then I waited a few more minutes or a few seconds. The files finally went. I think I also had way too many programs open on my computer, so I may have been having a resource problem. So let's go look at HAT again now. I closed it a minute ago. So we'll do the queries, most recent 100. And we're looking right here at about 511. And we received, notice here what happened. We received at 5:10 two files. Okay, and then at 5:11, which is why I'm still shocked we had that minute delay, we wrote out two files. So where did the two files get written? And also notice here I had different pipelines on my send ports. That was by mistake, but it still probably worked. So now I'll go over here and we'll look in our large directory. And we forgot to put the PO underscore here, but if we open this file, it'll open in the browser here. That's our 1500 file. And if we go to the other directory, the small directory, we still have our PO underscore, and then open that, and then we see our 800 file. So we see how we basically routed our message to one of two different send ports depending upon the actual size of the purchase order itself, based on a promoted field inside that schema. So just to recap what we did here, we took our schema, that's not it, right here, and we promoted these two fields. And then we have total PO amount. Then what we did is we came to the BizTalk admin console. We added, or we have two send ports now, and they basically each have a filter on them. So if we go to the filter, one is set up to receive all orders over 1,000, greater than or equal. The small one was set to receive all purchase orders under 1,000. And we could have as many of these as we wanted. So let's just do this as the last part of this video. We'll actually make yet another send port here. New one-way send port, and we'll call this PO schema out all. And we'll also make this a file. We'll go make another file on the disk called PO file out all. And so it's easier for me to copy and paste to that. Paste it in there. We'll just put the word all here in front of the message ID. Okay, click OK. And then we should put pipeline here. We should probably pick XML. And we should probably do that on the large as well. So right here, let's just put the word large PO. And then let's put the pipeline to XML transmit. And then we have to start this port. Okay, now we go back again to our input file. We drop actually let's clear again. No, we don't have to clear it. We'll drop these two files. So the 800 and the 1500 are in the input directory. BizTalk has received them. And now if we go look at the large, you can see we corrected that. Large PO. Here, we should have called this small PO, but we got another PO. And if we go to the all PO, aha, we didn't get anything in the all PO. And the reason was I didn't put the, well, I wasn't going to have a filter on the amount, but I still need the filter on the message type. So we're going to go here, go to filters, message type, BTS message type. Oops, I missed it by one there. Okay, now we're gonna, I'll clear all these. Total Commander has this command where I can show all the files and all the subdirectories. So what I did just there was I just cleared all the subdirectories, so they're all empty. So now I want to go to N, copy 800 and 1500, refresh, they're gone. And now if I go to the all, still not there. If I go to the large, that worked. Small worked. All did not work. So let's go back to hat and figure out why. So here we received two files, we sent two files, but we should actually see a third send. And there's really not a lot of ways to debug that. Okay, one thing we'll do though, just since we haven't seen it yet, let's go back to the receive, look at message flow, and see this is the file we dropped it in. Notice it says unparsed interchange. That's not usually good. But then this one did parse it. And it says XML transmit. So this is the next step. So if I hit this, it will go forward to the next step. Where did it transmit it to? And we can see it transmitted to the small directory. But what I would expected here is to actually see two transmits at on the same screen. So let's go back and look again at our all port here. So first of all our ports are turned on. So let's look at out all. And let's look at filters. It almost has to be because this is wrong right here. There it is. Easy mistake, but not so easy. See, I actually have two R's there. It's hard to even read. I have PURR purchase with two R's. So see, that was clearly not a match. So unfortunately, when you select this field, there's no list to choose from. You have to be very accurate on how you type that. Okay, so we're going to run the whole thing again now. We're going to delete our files over here. Remember, there's one other thing I wanted to do just to make this look nicer. Right here I'm going to put the word small PO on the output file name. Okay, now we're going to go drop our two files. I've got to drop them in the right place. So I have to go to the N directory, highlight and copy them. Okay, they're gone. Now there's the all directory, and we see two files. The large we see one, the small we see one. So now both files were sent to the all directory because both files basically fit the all category. So there's our 1500 and here is our 800. Whereas if we go to the large, I'm hitting F3, which is a list utility here. You see the 1500 in the large directory, and then here in the small directory you see the 800. So what we've proven here is two things: that we can route messages to more than one send directory. So this is the subscriber publish model, subpub, or pub sub, publish subscriber. So we publish the message to the message box database, and then it can be sent to multiple send ports. And so the small send port receives just the ones under 1,000, the large 1,000 and over, and then the all didn't have any filter on the PO amount. It received all messages that had a certain schema type. So that concludes this video.